I think we can start. It's been 2 minutes, so if more people join on the way, they'll be able to follow. So again, welcome everyone to our 4th webinar for the Network of Multipliers of the Green Deal Project Support Office. My name is Beatriz Mayor, and I am one of the consultants working on the project from Ricardo Energy and Environment. And this project is run by a partnership between Ecoris and Ricardo for the European Commission, particularly the DG Research unit. Next slide, please. I'm going to run you through the agenda that we are going to have today. First of all, we'll give a brief introduction to the Green Deal Project Support Office, what we do and how we try to help the set of projects funded by the Horizon 2020 Green Deal Call. Then we will run you through an update of our working group activities and our action plans. Following, we'll have a selection of success stories from the Green Deal Call projects presenting. We will have representatives of the Zero Waste Project pioneers, Neo Giant, and Enough. We will give you some time to ask questions to the panelists, so you can deep dive into details about the presentations that you'd like to sort out. We will then have our colleague Anthony giving an update on the communications, materials and events that are upcoming within the Green Deal Support Office, so you can be up to date on what's coming up and what will be available for you to follow. Then our colleague Matthew Collins will present the newsletter and peer-to-peer opportunities that the Green Deal Support Office is offering to the Network of Multipliers as well. And finally, I will close and brief you on the next step that we envision for the upcoming months. So this said, next slide, please. Just a brief housekeeping rules. Please note that the event is being recorded, so please keep your microphone muted and your camera off during the plenary sessions. And if you want to ask questions or speak, you can turn on your camera and mic to speak, and also raise your hand, please. Please use the chat to react and comment or ask questions, and we can pick them up during the questions and answers slot. But also during that slot, if you want to speak, you can raise your hands and we will be given the word in the order of raising the hand. And if you have any technical issues, please send us a message to the support at Green Deal Projects EU, and we will try to figure out. Also, you can type in the chat so our colleague who is running the IT support can pick any problems up. Next slide, please. So with this, I'll start with a brief introduction to the Green Deal Project Support Office. Next slide. The Green Deal Project Support Office is operated by DG RTD, DG Research, by Ecoris and Ricardo, as I mentioned before. Its mission is to facilitate coordination between the projects funded under the Horizon 2020 Green Deal Call and maximize their positive impact in the longer term. And we've got the timeline starting in November 2021, and we will finish by November 2026. So during these 5 years of operation, we are running several services to support the Green Deal Call projects, maximizing their impact and showcasing all the valuable work that they are doing. Next slide, please. Just an overview of the activities that the Green Deal Support Office is offering. We have the mandate to first connect the projects by identifying collaboration opportunities, implementing joint actions, supporting cross-project outputs, and developing impact assessments. And this is mainly done through clustering the projects into working groups, which I will describe later. Second, we try to build networks. We organize networking meetings, facilitate information exchange, provide peer-to-peer learning and mentoring opportunities, and engage with regional and national initiatives. And this is partly done through this network of multipliers that is the target audience of our webinar today. We also try to amplify their impact by generating project success stories that you can check on the website, creating promotional content, advising on effective dissemination, and engaging with the multipliers. Fourth, we try to enhance their skills by creating impactful communication, improving the storytelling through several trainings, developing a powerful business plan, also through a training, and engaging stakeholders effectively. And finally, we try to help them influence policy by informing regulatory activities, try to link them to the policymakers, contributing to policy recommendations, providing EU policy updates, facilitating contact with the European Commission departments, and at the end of the day, trying to be a connector between the European Commission and the projects. Next slide, please. As I said, the way that we are operating, we have structured the projects into 5 working groups by thematics. So we have one on clean energy, one on climate change and biodiversity, one on urban environment and mobility, one on food and health, and one on knowledge and citizens. And we will have the facilitators of these 5 working groups presenting on the activities and updates that they have been working together for the last 2 years. Next slide, please. What is the network of multipliers within this structure I have presented? It's a network of actors that have an interest in following and disseminating the progress of these Green Deal projects and connecting to them for synergies and exchanges. This is what we have tried to do, opening this opportunity of joining this network. So everyone outside of the Green Deal core projects, either projects from other calls, associations, influencers, policymakers, national contacts, anyone can be part of this network and follow the activities of the projects. What is it for? It's aimed to disseminate the activities and results of the GDSO with a network, to ultimately aim to maximize the Green Deal project's impact, multiply dissemination of the results by engaging the network in sharing and promoting communications. So serve as a multiplier of this impact and try to help them reach the widest audience possible. Next slide. What's the structure? We initially have structured it starting by contacting the national contact points, which are always a good multiplier within the member states to relevant specific, especially academic institutions, but also other type of stakeholders that usually follow research. Also national institutions that are promoting the projects under the Green Deal, and also the Green Deal project leaders who can benefit from the knowledge sharing. At the EU level, we have also tried to invite Green Deal related associations, related platforms and initiatives, and EU projects from other calls. And so the network keeps expanding and gaining subscribers that follow our activities. Next slide, please. The role of the multipliers is to participate and benefit from the learning by being invited to a selection of Green Deal's GDSO activities, but getting periodic updates on the activities and webinars that happen. They can request offer engagement. So projects or other actors could express their interest to get connected to the Green Deal projects for exploring synergies or doing common work. They can also maximize dissemination and impact by sharing communication materials through your networks, either social networks or direct contacts. Share and tag content on social media. So if you follow us on LinkedIn or Twitter, you can follow our posts, and make national research institutes or projects aware of the initiatives so they can follow and benefit from the knowledge generated. Next slide, please. With this introduction, to give a bit of context of who the Green Deal Support Office and our network of multipliers are, I'd like to give the floor to our facilitators of the working groups so they can tell you a bit about what they have been doing with the projects in the groups, the type of activities that are being conducted, and the type of impacts and products you can expect to hear from. So if you give the next slide, I will give the floor first to Ellie O'Hare, who will present on the Climate Change and Biodiversity Working Group.
Thanks, Beatrice. So in the Climate Change and Biodiversity Working Group, we have 17 projects, and they're composed of work on solutions to prevent and manage wildfires, preserve and restore biodiversity in natural ecosystems, and supporting adaptation and mitigation to climate change. And together, we've agreed upon 6 actions, which you can see on the slide, to work on together with the GDSO. So the first action is mapping commonalities. So here the projects will map common challenges to identify areas where they can support each other and collaborate on solutions. And this has actually been complete. And we hosted a session to discuss these challenges in December. Another part of this action would be mapping project partners so that connections can be shared, and this is currently in progress. The second action focuses upon case studies. So here the projects will map their case studies to identify areas where collaboration can occur in nearby areas. And once this is complete, we will host a common workshop at the GDSO on these shared case studies. And this is currently in progress. And another part of case studies is mapping stakeholders to identify common organisations. And once this is complete, we will organise joint stakeholder consultations to avoid stakeholder fatigue. And this is currently in progress as well. And once both of these mapping exercises are complete, the GDSO will create a visual map, which will be published on the GDSO website just to make it easier to identify these different case studies, stakeholders, and where they're located. The third action within the working group is knowledge sharing activities. So here the projects can share methodological approaches. For example, one of our projects is planning a webinar to share their knowledge on co-creation. We're also planning thematic discussions, and the projects will choose areas of interest and then hold discussion sessions to share and build knowledge on these areas. And these have been arranged to start in February, so the plans are underway for these. Our fourth action is joint events. So this can include joint webinars that the projects will host on topics of common interest. And we're currently in the planning stages for a webinar on co-creation. And another type of joint event that our projects are interested in are external events where they can showcase their work and common interests. For example, back in June 23, 4 of our projects hosted a joint session at the European Climate Change Adaptation Conference, and we're going to discuss more opportunities going forward. Our fifth action is on training sessions, and these will mainly be focused on methodologies for co-creation and stakeholder engagement, and they will be based upon upskilling and could involve external educators. And the plan is to use challenges from Action 1, where we mapped challenges to identify areas for training, and this is currently in progress. And our final action to focus upon is policy engagement. So this will mainly focus on mapping policy uptake readiness level at the EU level, and also training on engagement with policymakers. And we have training sessions to be planned this year on that topic. And just a quick update on some outputs from our project. The Merlin project, which works on ecological restoration of freshwater ecosystems, has released episode 6 of their podcast. So I'll post a link to that in the chat. It's on the topic of water, climate and farming, making space for stream restoration in Portugal. And finally, our co-coordinators from 4 of our projects contributed to the authorship of a paper that reviews the proposed nature restoration law. So again, I'll post a link to that in the chat as well. It's a really interesting read. And if we can move to the next slide, Laura will talk about Clean Energy Working Group.
Yeah, thanks, Ellie. So the Clean Energy Working Group has 16 projects. They're focused on decarbonization through development, deployment, integration of different technologies in the energy system. We have 4 main actions. And if you can press the next. Yes, so the first one is on policy inputs and developments. So this includes development of position papers and meetings with decision makers. So this is upcoming for the position papers this year. We will work together with the different projects to develop some common position papers, and also we facilitate meetings with decision makers at different levels. Then the next action is more on thematic discussions. So here we matched the different projects with each other so that to encourage peer-to-peer learning, and also that they can exchange on different challenges and solutions. So this was done last year. Also currently ongoing is the business model mapping for the different projects. Then our third action is on communication and dissemination. So here we're supporting the projects in disseminating their outputs, but also some common ideas. So for example, we had a few posts and a few papers last year. One was on hydrogen, one was on renewable energy sources in Africa. Can also post the links later. Also, we created a common YouTube playlist for all the projects and other various social media posts. Then the next action is on the capacity building. Here we have thematic webinars and training. So here this is based on what the different projects need. So if they have a common training or thematic webinar they would like. In the past year, we've had an organization of a training for the comms leader to discuss the different challenges and solutions. And this year we will also try to have some more webinars for the projects to exchange. I think that covers it. Also, of course, our projects not only cover EU, like we have hydrogen and other types of projects, but also Africa, Europe, renewable energy. I think I then hand it to the next facility. I'm not sure who it is.
Thank you, Laura. I think it's Ed or Matt. Do we have any of them? I can't see them, so let's skip to the next one, and we will leave them for the end. So if we move to the next slide, we've got Ines covering the food and health.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Beatriz. So within the food and health working group, we have 15 projects focused on reshaping the food and health sectors to better support the green transition. And since the scope of these projects is a bit different, we have divided in this working group in 2 smaller groups, one more focusing on food and another one more focusing on health. The past year, their efforts have culminated in a lot of delivers that we can see in the Green Deal Support Office website, even on the Twitter accounts, such as participation in joint events, the writing of joint articles, contributions to webinars organized by the Green Deal Support Office, and even infographics. And for this year, during our working group meetings, we already discussed what is going to be our action plan for 2024. So our first area that we'll focus will be on policy, and within the policy, both of these groups pretend to develop policy recommendations and continue monitoring policy updates. And after the development of policy recommendations, they pretend also to reach out to the policymakers and the decision makers. The second area that we are focusing on is the knowledge sharing and communication, where they plan to continue disseminations through social media and other means, the work they are doing together, not only the participations in the events, like also joint articles. For example, in one of the working groups, they are developing a memorandum of agreement in green practices. Other action that they plan to develop is the exchange of experience on methodologies, assessments, and dissemination and definitions. And one last one is the dissemination of communication plans. The last area that they are focusing is in events. As I've mentioned already many times, they plan to organize joint webinars among Green Deal projects with thematic experts and stakeholders, and participation in events together. Can give you an example for the food working group. It was a very successful participation on the food conference in this past month of December, where they had the chance to go in person there to Brussels, to the European Commission, to this event, and interact with the other projects. This within the food working group. For example, tomorrow, the health working group is organizing a joint webinar where several of these projects will be presenting and exchanging also their findings and their experience with other projects. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. And I'm Gabriele Galassi, and I am the facilitator for the Knowledge and Citizens Working Group, which is the 5th working group of the Green Deal Support Office. And within our working group, we have 14 projects that are basically focused on how citizen engagement and behavioral science can be included in the shaping and formulation of new European Green Deal policies. But we also have a wider and various working group in terms of project focus, because we include also some projects that are focusing on activities with regards to air quality monitoring and also data, the elaboration of different data hubs. With regards to the first activity that we will be carrying out throughout 2024, we have the policy focus. In fact, within last November and basically these last weeks, we have started to divide the projects into different subgroups, and they will be in charge of developing and drafting policy recommendations and policy briefs that will be presented to the wider public hopefully between June and July, more or less within the timeline of the EU Green Week. And the different topics that we have identified are citizen science, behavioral science, and the inclusion of vulnerable groups in Green Deal policies, and the data standardization. Then we have the second activity that we will be, and we have already carried out within last year, which includes communication and dissemination. And especially with this regard, we have been thoroughly supported by the central office. And then at the working group level, our take was also to map and design commonalities and share activities within different projects, and we try to basically develop a map of the different timelines and deliverables of all the different projects, and that was the basis for all the future activities of the working group. And we managed to actually foresee concrete synergies in terms of also of the timelines of the projects, and to then draft the following action plan. Then the third activity, which we have also received a huge support from the central office, regards the events and the joint participation of the of the Knowledge and Citizens projects in different conferences and online webinars and in-person events. Especially last year, we can recall the organization of a side event at the EU Green Week and the participation also at the EU citizen regions. And with regards to the foreseen activities, we are now trying to support a couple of projects that are treating citizen science to participating in the CITSI conference at the UNEP in Nairobi during around the 20th of February. And then we will also disseminate further and additional events that our projects will participate throughout the year.
Thank you very much, Gabriele. Now, Maria, can we go back to the slide that we skipped? We have Matthew Moss now in the call who can present on the urban environment and mobility. So Matt, all yours.
Great, thanks, Bea. Good morning, everyone. So the third area that, well, maybe not the third area, given that we're running out of order today, is urban environment and mobility. Under this this area, there's 9 projects that are looking at the transition, the decarbonisation of multimodal connections and transport nodes such as ports, airports, but then also looking, so that's the mobility side of things, and then also the urban environment, looking at buildings, neighbourhoods, cities and infrastructure. So if we can move on to the next slide, please. Oh, you just have to, yeah, click your way through. So there's 4 main themes within the this working group. So the policy themes is looking at the need for two-way interaction between policy developments and the Green Deal projects. On one hand, existing and forthcoming policies may have far-reaching impacts for the projects, and the projects normally have a lifespan of a few years, and their impacts are meant to be delivered obviously in much greater time duration than the projects. So we need to account for sort of changing policy landscapes over time that can both impact the project in when it's being delivered, but then also post-project into the future based on those changing demands. Projects are expected to benefit from improving the anticipation and response to policy developments, but then or vice versa, policymakers can also benefit from the developments that are existing within the projects and adapt to and be informed by some of the project's outputs. The second theme is thematic collaborations. So within thematic collaborations, that's obviously trying to look at areas where of synergies and overlap between the different projects. Urban and mobility have so far sat quite different ends of the spectrum, but in the working group, however, there are a couple of areas for overlaps. Obviously, in urban areas, you do have areas of mobility, but perhaps thinking about ports and airports as the main mobility projects within this working group, there's not a natural overlap. We don't often have a port in the middle of a city or urban environment, and we don't often have an airport there either. But however, one thematic area that has been drawn out through the introduction of a new member to the working group is the issue of air quality as a thematic area, which is one where projects are collaborating on as we speak. If we can click through onto the next button, thank you very much. So operational issues. This is, I'd say, a theme that's more around the practicalities of running some of these Green Deal projects. So within our working group, we have some rather large projects, and there has been perhaps challenges of managing such a diverse and range of teams. So trying to put together some sort of guide of best practice, sharing lessons learned from other projects, both within the Green Deal and out of the Green Deal, to try and figure out how we might be able to implement this better, is another area that we've looked at. And then the fourth, if you can just click on one more area, is business models and funding. Now, there is going to be a central GDSO hosted workshop on this in the future, so we perhaps put a little bit of a pause on this action within our own working group, but thinking about within the project, you're all required to write, at least at the proposal stage, an initial business model. This is thinking about, okay, post-project, how can we take this further? How can you develop this into an effective exploitation plan? mapping sort of key stakeholders that may be involved, linking back to the policy, which is the sort of primary action of this working group, and thinking about how we may be able to secure additional financing and funding beyond the project, whether that's through an additional funding call or whether the project's at a stage where it could reach out to secure commercial financing to be able to implement these solutions in the future. And our aims for this is to put together, I guess, a little funding database relevant to the working group, and then go through and see which ones might be appropriate for individual projects to take forward. So that's our working group in quite a short space of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Matt. We then move to the selection of success stories that we have today for you. So if we move to the next slide, we'll have the first success stories by Zero Waste. So all yours.
Hello, good morning to you all. My name is Lisa van den Bossen and I am indeed part of the Zero project. Thank you very much for having me here today and giving me the chance to present our approach of the stakeholder workshops that we hosted in Brussels. Next slide, please. So maybe before I dive into the context, I will already tell you which solution we have developed. So Zero is focusing on reducing food loss and waste, and we have a mobile container, so it's like a shipping container, in which we put smaller scale processing devices that allow to transform, for example, apples into apple juice. It's more versatile than that. You can actually put in a lot of different fruit or vegetable feedstocks and turn it into a high quality juice, a puree or soup at the end. So this is a solution that we have, and we are organizing these stakeholder workshops to investigate what could be the success factors or potential barriers when we want to scale this up across Europe. Why are we using this mobile container? Well, because we of course see that there is a lot of food loss and waste, and that there is a lot of variability actually in the food surpluses and the biomass that is left over. It's very variable, it's in small quantities, and these both things do not match with the existing processing capacity, which is often large scale, completely adapted in line with the economies of scale philosophy that most companies of course have to adhere to. So that is one challenge. Another challenge is the fact that the transportation of these leftover feedstocks to wherever they might be needed is quite challenging. As you know, we do not have a problem of not having enough food in this world. The problem is getting it to the right people at the right time. So that's the same in our project. We also have this challenge. We also looked at the problem from the perspective of the food bank. As you might have noticed, the workshop actually took place at the food bank in Brussels. And so we also take into account their challenges. For them, we see that actually they receive inputs, they receive donations, but not always the right kind. So what they need particular type of products, for example, fresh fruit and vegetable is something they lack, while they often get a lot of more unhealthy pre-packed and long shelf life types of food. So this is the context. Next slide, please. We organized this workshop at the food bank, where we invited representatives from these food banks, also from the Netherlands, from different countries and internationally, food processing companies, retailers, large auctions, farmer organizations, but also importantly, and not mentioned on the slide, policymakers, of course. We demonstrated to them the solution of SIL4, and apologies for this project language. This is just the way we call our living labs or demonstration or pilot projects. We call them SILs. What's in a name? So pilot project 4, the prototype, this mobile shipping container, was live at the site and demonstrated. We also had a tour of the food banks. Participants had the chance then to ask all of their questions, so they would fully understand the solution that we are presenting. And then we would ask them to work with us to uncover potential barriers or success factors for scaling these solutions. And we didn't do that for like in a complete blank, but we focused on certain bottleneck dimensions that had been identified previously within the project working groups. And then the output from this will, of course, all be put into a nice report. But I would already like to quickly share some lessons that we took from this workshop. First one is a very important one, legislative challenges. So taking fruit and vegetables out of the market and donating them is allowed. But the policymakers, of course, want to avoid that these fruit and vegetables would go back into the market. So if 100 kilo of apples is donated, then we need to make sure that 100 kilo of apples is also distributed to people in need, and not 50 kilo distributed and 50 kilo going back into the market, for example, impacting prices. And that's quite easy if you're talking about 100 kilo of apples. But it's much more complicated when you start talking about we have donated 100 kilo of apples that we are now transforming into how many liters of apple juice? Aha, okay, there's a challenge. So that depends on the yield, right? On how good this processing device, how much liters of apple juice is coming out. And that might also seem easy, but it's really not, because that depends on the type of processing device that you have been using, depends also on the type of apples you put in, how many of them are rotten, for example. That's something that could vary. But also you would probably not only put in apples, because remember, we wanted something versatile and flexible. So we might mix those apples with pear or with other fruit, types of fruit, which will change the yield. And then there's also an impact of the type of recipe and the kind of processing device that will also again impact the yield. So it is quite important that some preparatory work is done here, and that is something we will do within the project to determine these yields, so that the lawmakers have policymakers have the possibility of putting in place the right control mechanisms to allow these kind of donations in fruit, which will then be donated at the end as a juice or a soup or a puree. So that was one very important one that we discussed. Another one is that we see across Europe there's a lot of stimuli to increase donations to food banks in general, because the more food and process, if the food is already arriving at the food bank, then of course we also have the opportunity to do more with it. Because I mentioned earlier, they don't often get enough fruit and vegetable donated. Reason for that partly is because they also sometimes refuse donations when, for example, they are offered 100 kilo of tomatoes and they cannot distribute them in time. Then it's no use accepting them. Of course, when you can turn these tomatoes into some passata that they can then keep for a longer time, then it would make sense. So that's why where we kind of come in. So overall, we need to stimulate and increase up the donations to food banks. As soon as the offer is there, we will find solutions of processing and distributing these foodstuffs. And this differs across Europe, these kind of stimuli. So I think there's a lot to learn there from different European languages, countries, and spread the best practices. Of course, you already noticed that this container, it's not for free. It needs to be operated as well. So we do need money. We do need a business model that will also be developed further during the project, but is something quite important, as was identified during the workshops. And then finally, and also very interesting learning from the workshops, is that this container that we now have is mobile. But making it mobile is also a high cost, while the participants actually pointed out that this mobility is not strictly necessary. We had already hinged in that direction, but it was confirmed very clearly during the workshops. The main advantage of the container is that it is versatile and flexible, not necessarily that it is mobile, which reduces the cost a lot and makes it easier to scale this up. So this was a very interesting lesson as well for us. And that is all from my side. I can take questions right now if you want, if that's allowed, or I don't know if I should wait until the end, but I will not be staying much longer, so feel free to shoot now.
Then let's allow small slot for questions for Lisa, so you can see she can leave. So if anyone has any questions, please raise your hand. Okay, I don't see any hands raised, so I guess it was very clear, Lisa. Thank you very much. If anyone comes up with any questions, please type it on the chat. And if Lisa has already left by the questions and answers slot, we will email them to her so she can provide an answer in writing. So thank you very much, Lisa.
Beatrice, could I ask one quick question? Could I ask Lisa, what type of food will the container process? Is it just fruit?
No, it's fruit and vegetables. That's one of the advantages of the container, that it can process actually almost all fruit and vegetables that you can imagine. It can be processed, and it can do that because it has different. You can change the sieves and the spirals easily to allow this. And the outputs that it's producing? It could be juices, purees, or smoothies. Okay, juices, purees, or smoothies. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Martin, for your question. Any other question before we move? I don't see any. I kindly ask everyone to please raise your hands when you want to speak, so that will let us keep an order for the questions. You can also type questions on the chat during the presentations if you don't want to forget, and then we can pick it up. So both options are fine. And then I'll give the word to our next presenter from NeoGiant.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. So hello everyone. My name is Angela Carretero. I'm part of the communication team from NeoGiant project. So I will introduce a little bit what is NeoGiant. So NeoGiant is it's part of the Food and Health Working Group. And basically NeoGiant is a project that aims to improve the health and welfare of animals while reducing this microbial resistance and ensuring a sustainable farm animal production. The project promotes holistic practices to reduce the risk of animal disease outbreaks, whilst using these natural compounds to fight the spread of pathogens and microbial growth. So, well, we can go on the next slide, the only slide. So what was this success story? So the project is entirely based on bioactive extracts obtained from white grape marc. So the recovery and valorization of white grape marc offers this innovative solution to wine producers because it solves the over-storage of this byproduct, which is generated by thousands of tons in a short period of time each year. This white grape marc contains a significant amount of bioactive compounds, so it enables the obtaining of the natural extracts with excellent properties for use as functional ingredients. So the iGrape laboratory is the one in charge, and they have patented this very simple, versatile, and sustainable extraction technique following the principles of the green chemistry. These extracts enable innovative formulations, natural formulations in animal health, feeding, and reproduction fields, contributing at the same time to the development of circular value chains in the agri-food sector. So mainly, these are the highlights of the success story. So we are working with a multi-component, ready-to-use bioactive extracts. We are part of circular economy, using the viticulture byproducts as raw material. We are using the green extraction technologies. And we are also promoting the zero waste process. So by reducing the amount of waste that wines producers have to manage every year. So the main outputs of these developments, it's basically, so we get a cost-effective, efficient, and sustainable methodology for this grape marc extraction. Meeting the customer requirements for new environmentally friendly natural-based products, and coming up with solution for valorization of these byproducts generated in the wine sector, as we already mentioned. The main impacts, so NeoGiant offers sustainable solutions by reducing and valorizing. I think this is one of the main points of the whole project. So we reuse and valorize this white grape mark waste, agro waste, as the biomass feedstock. And then again, so on these processes, we create new value chains for the wine sector. So the main lesson that we come up on this part of the project is that the reuse and valorization of waste or byproducts from the agri-food sector can solve both environmental and economic problems, while creating new products with added value that can be beneficial for the sector. I want to add as well, I think it's not on the slide, but some challenges that we are overcoming and some that we have already overcome. So it was one of these challenges was to develop this suitable technology for obtaining bioactive extracts, following the principles of green chemistry. Sorry. And the other one was the scaling up of a methodology that was developed only at lab scale. So we could use it as a pre-industrial level and were guaranteeing the same concentration of these compounds. That would be pretty much it. And on our future plans, it's we have the adaptation of this methodology for other natural residues or byproducts instead of white grape mark. It could be any other natural byproducts. And that would be it from us. Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you very much. Any questions for Angela on this success story? Good. We don't have any questions yet, so we'll move to the next one and then leave some time at the end also for potential later questions. Then we have the presenter from Pioneers.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Valeria Burlando from Magellan Circle, and here I'm representing Pioneers. We are in the project leader for communication, dissemination, and cross-cooperation. Thanks for inviting us today in presenting this success story. That is the demonstrators showcase, so an interactive map we developed in the project. So it is a communication success story to frame a little bit more. Next slide, please. As context, I mean, as a challenge of Pioneers as project, we have the reduction of the environmental impact of European ports, while maintaining ports competitive in a sustainable global trade ecosystem. So there's the environmental aspect on our side and the business aspect on the other side. And in the project, we are working towards the identification of innovative technological solutions for greening the industry. And we found that the one-size-fits-all approach basically doesn't work because ports have several different environments in terms of size, in terms of goods. So also these innovations needs to be tailored and customized according to the specific real environment. This was a challenge also for us to communicate properly these demonstrators. And as output, we developed this interactive map. The map presents the 19 demonstrators that are developed in the frame of Pioneers. They are technological solutions for the greening of port industry. The map was launched on the 8th of November. Maybe we can directly surf the website. So I kindly ask you to move to Pioneer's website where the map is available. So you can scroll down. Thank you. Okay, so this is the map. The map is represents a container journey. So it is the environment part, and you have the eyes. Each eye is a demonstrator, and allow you to understand how technological innovation can help you in greening each part of this container journey and port. So if you click on one eye, for example, thank you, there's a preview of the demonstrator, and you can discover more details here. With a detailed page, you can see the methodology, the companies involved in the development of the demonstrator. There's a specific fact sheet, so you can have and gather all the information, and then reach out to the companies and people involved in the development of the technological solution. So we can maybe be back to the presentation. This was just to show the concrete output to you. Okay. The impacts we expect is to generate a concrete interest from the pioneer stakeholders community in the opportunities. This means to boost the market adoption of the innovation. So from port authorities to have a look on how they can concrete green their port operations, and for small medium enterprises and SMEs, for example, how to enter the market. The lessons learned in the development of the map is that this conceptualization and design of the map requires the cooperation of different professional figures. It was a cooperation of communication, business, and technological background. So the output is the map, but behind there's a lot of work. And the engagement of the demonstrators leader is really a crucial factor to boost the impact. So you need to have a lot of different people on board to create this kind of outcome. Then for the success stories, I think it is needed one click more. Okay, this demonstrator map is the subject of a social media campaign. It is ongoing. We did the midterm assessment with this kind of results, just to give you some information on the promotional impact. One click more, please, so we can see some figures. Until now, we are running half of the demonstrators campaign, so we are in the middle. We had 154 unique visitors on LinkedIn coming from this campaign, from software development industry and maritime transportation. We reached 40 more followers in our community. We have an average of 20 reactions per post. So it looks quite interesting, and 337 visitors on the website page dedicated to the demonstrators. So we plan to do the final assessment by end of February, when the campaign is supposed to close. And basically, these were the information from Pioneers that I'd like to share with you today.
Thank you very much, Valeria, and thanks for showing the website, which has been very enlightening to showcase your map. Any questions for Valeria? Okay, so then we move to our next success stories from the Innov project. So please, microphone is yours.
Good morning. My name is Silvia Minetto from the Italian National Research Council, and I participate in the ENAF project, European Food Chain Supply, to reduce greenhouse gases emissions by 2050. And the success story that I would like to present today has to do with the natural refrigerants for food last mile delivery. Next slide, please. Okay, so the main goal of the project is to provide tools and methods to support the EU farm to fork strategy. And to do this, we are involved in many activities, and you can find details, of course, in our website. I will post in the chat the link after this presentation. And amongst all the activities that we are doing, we are dedicating a huge effort to the demonstration campaign. So we have identified the relevant technologies for making the food, for decarbonizing the food business by 2050. And we have demonstrated these technologies in our project. We know that a huge amount of food, it is estimated to be around 40%, needs refrigeration at a certain point of its life. So it means that it falls within the so-called cold chain, which is the link of all the amount of all the steps in which the product needs to be kept at a specified temperature to preserve its safety and quality. And transport refrigeration is one of the links of this chain, and it is quite a challenging and critical link because it happens at many stages during the life of the project. We have seen, for example, before the containers, and we also have refrigerated containers. In the last years, we have seen that there has been an explosion of last mile delivery for grocery. This happened we have seen it during the COVID pandemic, but it has not stopped and still continuing. And so the delivery of the goods at controlled temperature is typically done with refrigerated vehicles, which is a vehicle which, of course, it's emitting on itself because it has normally a diesel engine. And even if now there is a clear transition towards electrification of these vehicles, and on top of the vehicle, there is an insulated box where you can store the food, and this box is normally coupled with a refrigerating unit. The refrigerating unit is a source of emissions because it is it is run on it is powered typically by a diesel engine again, so we have still emissions there. And there is also a refrigerant inside, which at the moment is a synthetic refrigerant, which normally has a very high global warming potential. So the success story that I would like to introduce is the fact that we have demonstrated that it is possible to make a refrigerating unit for last mile delivery, which is based, so it works on a natural refrigerant, which is R744. It's carbon dioxide itself. So it is whenever it is released to the atmosphere, and this happens many times, the leakage rate for transport refrigeration is very high, because you can imagine this kind of vehicles, they are subject to accelerations, vibrations, and also unexpected events like crashes and so on. So this is not adding anything to the greenhouse effect. And in addition, this unit can be coupled with an electrical vehicle. It means that we are trying to avoid also the diesel engine for feeding, for supplying this kind of units. And it can be coupled also with PV, so we can try to exploit renewables. So the output at the moment is this unit that you can see in the middle of the slide. It is a unit based on carbon dioxide as the refrigerant, which was designed, it was manufactured, installed, and it's now under measurements. It's located at the moment in our laboratories, but the follow-up will be a much smaller unit to be installed on board of a vehicle, which will run around and be really used by end users. Based on this design, we have also developed a model, and this model allows us to extend and to evaluate the impact of using this kind of units on the EU last mile delivery fleet. what we have evaluated is that it is possible really to cut the greenhouse gases emissions and also other pollutants, which is also a critical point, especially for last mile delivery, where you go and you enter the city centers. And so we have a problem of localized pollution. And we have demonstrated that first point is that these units, they are possible and they are efficient. So we have demonstrated the reduction in energy consumption, so reduction in the demand of energy, and an overall reduction of more than 30% in greenhouse gases emissions in the unit's entire life cycle, which is due to, on one side, to the better energy efficiency, and on the other side, on the fact that we are no more emitting synthetic refrigerants to the atmosphere. We have also learned many lessons. So the first one is that, and we are still learning them because the sector is very complex and boundaries are very complex. For example, weight is a key topic. We can't make a very heavy unit because what is heavy is to be transported, and so it's contributing to higher emissions. So we must keep the weight very low, keep it low, and also the size, because we wanted to exploit to the best the transportation space inside the box. And there are also very strict regulations in these sectors, because of course they are in place to preserve the food safety and so also to preserve our health. So they are very strict, and of course we need to take care of them when we develop our unit. And it's very important. We have also discovered that it is very important to interact with all the stakeholders to understand their needs and to understand also how this sector is evolving, because as I said, it's really exploding. So there are new needs that are coming up, that are popping up. So we need to take care of them if we want to develop a future-proof solution. And we have also discovered that it's very important to disseminate and to raise awareness about the impact of this kind of solution, because it's not always clear on how much the refrigerating part of the vehicles in the delivery, in the last mile delivery, is contributing to the overall emissions of the vehicle itself. So that's all on my side. Thank you. If there are questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Silvia? Now, besides asking questions on these 4 success stories, I would like to also invite the participants to also share, if they wish, any comments related to your activities, to possibilities to network with the 4 projects that I have presented, if you have, if you are following similar topics. So feel free to also, besides asking questions, to also share information as you wish, or reach out to the panelists for exchanges. So I'll give some time so we can get people to think and raise their hands if wished. I will also ask the 4 presenters of success stories to, if you wish, leave your email addresses on the chat. So if anyone wants to contact you later on, they can do so. Thank you. I can see the emails popping up. And you've got the websites of the projects on the chat as well. So feel free to keep exchanging on these very interesting and successful stories that we have heard today. So I will then move to our next slot. But if I see on the way more reactions on the chat, we can pick up some discussion.
Beatrice, I had raised my hand
Martin?
for a question of Valeria.
Yes.
Or Sylvia, sorry. It was, what's the typical loss rate from a refrigerant unit with using synthetic refrigerants that you would normally expect to see on a vehicle?
Okay, sorry, I was muted. That is something which is it's data that are not very easy to find, and the literature reports typically 10% or 15% per year. The overall charge is not so high if we compare to stationary refrigeration, for example, where we have hundreds of kilograms of, but it's constantly leaking, and we have it's estimated that there are more than 3 million of vehicles, around 3.4, I think it's the last estimation that I came across. And of course, there is also a problem of recovery at the end of life.
Yeah, no, the reason I ask is that I have had some experience with major refrigeration units, and leakage is something that is often not picked up because the operators tend just to top the system up and don't actually record the overall volumes. So that over a 12-month period, they have no idea really how much refrigerant that they're actually losing and what the economic cost of that topping up process is, because it never shows in the accounts for the company, because each time they top up, the amount is too small to be registered. It's only when you aggregate it over a 12-month period that you start to realize both the cost and the environmental impact of what you're doing. So that was the reason for asking that question.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Martin. Just to note that Martin is from Aurora Project, one of our Green Deal Support Office projects as well. So thank you very much for always being so active. And then I will give just to note that I have put on the chat the link to our Green Deal Support Office website on the page where you can find all the success stories from all the Green Deal projects that have submitted. These are one-pagers with a full description and all the details of these interesting stories. So we invite you to go there and check them. And then I'll give the floor to Anthony to update on the comms activities.
Hi there, name's Anthony Santiago. As Beatrice said, I am part of the comms team for the Green Deal Project Support Office. I just want to give you a bit of a flavour of the outputs that we've produced from the GDSO, just to get you up to date since the last Network of Multipliers meeting, and also an idea of some of the things that we've got coming up. So if we go to the first slide. Great. So yeah, so just a few things that I thought I'd raise that may be of interest. So we've produced a number of articles, reports, and videos. So just to go through a couple of them. So with the articles, we've got, produced one on reducing food waste. So that looked at examples of working with the supply chain, upcycling, recycling, engaging with the community, and what the projects have done, and like some of the outputs that they've gotten from that. And then we've also had one on innovation in ports and airports, and how that helped tackle the European, is helping to tackle the European climate goals. So things that covered include low carbon fuels, green infrastructure, electrification of vehicles, and plans for hydrogen powered handling equipment. So lots of innovation there. In terms of webinar, we also recently had a webinar on research findings on new additions to the EU Air Quality Directive proposal. So this one looked at the pollutants that will be included in the proposed revisions for the EU Air Quality Directive, and so we get some insights from the projects on like the sources of the pollutants, in which they're recorded, the way they're analysed, and what the air quality standards mean for us all. So looking at the cutting edge findings that they've got from the research, and I'm just going to add a link to the webinar in the chat window. Just you can see that here. So be able to take a look at that after the meeting, or perhaps in the side window in a short while. So if we move on to the next slide. So this month we have also been looking at promoting some of the clean energy working group projects, and then also from the recent outputs that we've had from this working group. So some of the outputs include the clean energy sources in Africa, so looking at the common need for developing, for making clean energy more accessible in developing countries, so that transition to clean and sustainable energy sources, so things like smart microgrids, generating and transmitting renewable energy, gasification of biomass and storage systems. We also looked at hydrogen, looked at security, affordability, and reliability of it. So some of the projects talked about there, creating a 100 megawatt hydrogen production hub, pressurized alkaline electrolysis plant, or creating hydrogen from industrial CO2 or from biomass. And then we also produced a report on digitalization and clean energy. So looking at how that's helping with the transition to clean energy. But having said that, we talked a lot about technology here. It's not all about just technology. There's also some social innovation here. And in one of the videos, webinars that we had recently, it was about the community and bottom-up transitions in energy and climate change adoption. So this looked at bringing together projects from the Green Deal call and external projects, and look at the views and experiences of that. So looking at their the response by local and grassroots initiatives on addressing the climate crisis and sustainable energy systems. So making use of local knowledge, participation, empowerment, and just helping them to address the issues with climate change. And so if we move on to, so those are some of the articles, reports, and videos. If you look at the next slide, I'll show you some of the success stories that we've got on our website. So since the last Network of Multipliers webinar, we've also released 14 success stories spanning the range of the working groups that we cover in the Green Deal Project Support Office. And so like earlier, we heard from Zero, from Enough, from Pioneers, and from NeoGiant, and all the great work they're doing. But there's also a range of others, that we haven't been able to feature in this webinar due to the time available. So things like providing near real-time extreme weather forecast warnings, or helping users to track SDG targets, and making it easy to access by scientists and policymakers, or increasing engagement from the public and raising awareness of the great work being done to combat climate change and mitigation by merging art and science. And then in energy is also managing data in a smart way, in a smart grid, so ensuring a better integration of all the renewable energy sources and their usage. So it's helping to transform the way we use energy and like the way we live, basically. So again, I will put a link to the success stories in the chat window. Yeah, I do invite you to take a look at them, and I'll give a couple more examples just to give you a flavor of what form they take. So if we go on to the next slide, I'll give you two examples. So the first one is from Sylvanus from the Climate Change and Biodiversity Working Group. So we all heard last year about in the news about forest fires ravaging areas of Europe. So I thought this was particularly pertinent with Sylvanus, looking at bringing together technology and collaboration. So making use of drones, unmanned aerial vehicles, modern satellite communication systems, and then bringing them together with fire service and authorities, just to have a more of a holistic approach to combating wildfires. Some exciting technologies, and also some stakeholder engagement and collaboration going on there. And another project, if we move on to the next slide, is BioflexGen in the Clean Energy Working Group. So it's focusing on ensuring our transition to clean energy, includes the approach of using biomass and hydrogen, so contributing to a faster transition to clean energy. So this is where they're looking, they're developing a cutting edge plant to help with our energy independence. So a high efficient combined heat and power CHP technology with some patented technologies in it. So you can see a couple of screenshots here in the screen. And as I mentioned, making use of biomass, creating hydrogen, and making it more efficient, basically. So those are just some of the things that the other projects are covering. I would encourage you to have a look on the website, take a look at them. We've got the PDFs, we've got the web pages, which go into more detail. Of course, feel free to contact the projects to find out more about what they do and to explore collaborations. So going at a high level, I want to talk about the quarterly newsletter that we have on our website. So if you go to the next slide. So we do have a quarterly newsletter that we produce. We have just released one, which was the January edition, and I'll add a link to where you can find them on our website. So here you'll find the latest issue. So you see the most recent one focused on the urban environment. So again, you see a theme here of engaging stakeholders like local communities, but then also like positive energy neighborhoods, and also the approach of using living labs, which is a concept to be able to demonstrate the project and as part of the research, and also sharing learnings with twin cities. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that, sign up, and encourage others to keep in touch with the outputs from the GDSO. And yeah, I think that's all the updates I've got. Oh, one more thing which I haven't been able to put in the slides. We also do post the events coming up on the GDSO website, and I've added the link there. So that includes, just to give a flavor of some of the events that we've got coming up, one on toxicology, one on persistent mobile pollutants, and also the European Commission's flagship research and innovation event, which is taking place in March. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that. So that's where it brings together policymakers, researchers, and the public to debate and shape the future of research and innovation in Europe. So plenty of debates, networking opportunities, and dedicated workshops. So yeah, that's all for me in terms of an update from comms. Let's see if you had any questions from the chat. Who decides which stories are published there? Yep, so Beatrice has replied to that. So the GDSO team reviews the success stories and report on the achievements that have been completed. We publish about 15 to 18 in each round every 6 months. Yep, that's it. Any other questions from the comms perspective?
If Martin has his hand up.
Yep. Martin?
No, my apologies. I'd left the hand up from previously. I've taken it down.
Okay, no worries. Oh, great. So it says, good morning from Vancouver. Any collaborations going on with Canada, Canadian companies? Are there projects working on textile and apparel, sustainability, circular fashion? Beatrice, I wonder if there's something I can hand over to you with as an overview of the projects. I'm not aware of any to cover these areas.
I think this would fall within the possibly food and health group if there are any projects on this topic. So if Ines is still on the call, are you aware of any of the projects in the group working on sustainable textiles or fashion? In terms of, in the meantime, collaborations with ongoing Canadian companies, I don't think there are any in place, but this is something that can be explored if there is interest. So the participant who posted the question, feel free to contact us, and we can do this research for you and share also your suggestion to all the projects to see if there are any partners also working on this topic who might be interested to reach out. So that's something that we can facilitate for you. Any other questions? Okay, then I will let the room to my colleague Matthew Collins, who will be presenting the launch of the Network of Multipliers newsletter and the peer-to-peer opportunities.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. Hi, everyone. My name is Matthew Collins, and I'll be talking to you about the newsletter and the peer-to-peer opportunities. Next slide, please. So the first edition of the Network of Multipliers newsletter was launched earlier this month in January and is in parallel to the newsletter that Anthony provided an update just now. The main difference will be that the content will be more personalized to the Network of Multipliers, such as peer-to-peer networking opportunities. You can see a little screenshot of one of the pages. It was sent to all those who have registered for the Network of Multipliers. So if you have registered in the last 2 to 3 weeks or have just registered for this webinar, then you may not have seen it. If that is the case, then just pop a message in the chat and we can send it to you and make sure. And if you just make sure you are signed up to the network, then you should receive the next one. The newsletter was launched to provide quarterly updates to you, the participants in the Network of Multipliers, on the latest news stories, for example, newly written thematic articles, work group reports, initiatives such as the success stories that you heard earlier, calls for peer-to-peer networking opportunities, and recent and upcoming events from GDSO and the projects, and any relevant materials that come with them, such as recordings. For example, in the inaugural newsletter, we provided information and links to the recordings of a webinar on community and bottom-up transitions in energy and climate change adaptation, and a workshop on clearing the air, research findings on new additions to the EU Air Quality Directive proposal. It is a great bite-sized way for you to not miss any highlights in between the biannual webinars, such as the one you are currently attending. Next slide, please. The newsletter will contain approximately 4 to 5 news articles each issue. So as I said, yeah, it's only bite size. It's not. It won't take too long to look through. It just provides updates. In the recent issue, these were the launch of the newsletter, a call for peer-to-peer opportunities, 2 new thematic articles on how innovation in ports and airports is helping to tackle European climate goals, and one on reducing food waste in a sustainable future, which you can see in the screenshot. Next slide, please. The other part that makes it different to the other newsletter is that it also provides social media, suggested social media posts. And that is just in case you'd like to share the news stories or events on your social media accounts, or whether you're just looking for new material for your social media accounts. And as you can see, there is suggested text with hashtags, picture, so it is super easy to copy, paste, and post. The material here is purely suggested, and any of the constituent parts can be modified to your liking. The example, again, is the reducing food waste for a sustainable future. So you can see how it's kind of transformed from the update to yourselves and then to the social media post that you could post into your communications channels. So that is it for the newsletter. Are there any questions or comments, either via microphone or chat? As this is a newest initiative, all feedback is welcome. And all feedback would be great, actually, because we could then make sure that we're providing you the information that you would most like. So yeah, let me know if you do have any questions. I will move on, but if you just post them in the chat, then I can pick them up after the next part. Okay, so, and then the next slide, please. So then there's also, we'd just like to provide an update and also just a bit of information on the peer-to-peer networking opportunities. So peer-to-peer networking opportunities entails connecting the Green Deal core projects with other projects, industry, public entities to collaborate on common topics for a mutually beneficial knowledge exchange. By facilitating interaction, sharing experiences, knowledge, and addressing any challenges. Peer-to-peer exchanges can be structured around specific topics like climate adaptation or health, as well as broader issues such as devising technical designs, overcoming implementation hurdles, promoting innovation, addressing regulatory concerns, or formulating business models. An example was the first session that was held in October 2023. It was a session with the projects from the Urban Environment and Mobility Working Group and other projects from outside the Green Deal Core. And they were talking about various expert topics on the chosen subjects. So they all provided presentations on the subjects and then discussed potential points of overlap. There were also policymakers from DG ENA who provided some policy framework insights. All those that attended were satisfied with the outcome of the session. So people have found it very beneficial. So definitely a positive exchange. There is also a session being planned for the projects in the Energy Working Group for early 2024. It is still in the planning stage, so any ideas would be welcome. Or if you'd like to participate, then please get in touch. For example, a potential theme could be the conversation that was in the chat earlier between projects on energy transition in Africa. I believe it was Lipari that was talking about it in the chat. So we could then talk between these projects and think of expert topics and then facilitate this exchange. So, one thing to note actually would be, because it is these are like expert topics, it would be the project experts on the chosen subject that would be invited. So not necessarily the coordinators or even the lead partners. It's whoever's working on that specific part of the project. This isn't, so please do get in touch with us at that stated email address if you would like to get involved. And if you have any ideas, and it doesn't just have to be with the Energy Working Group projects that are coming up, it could be with any of the working groups that you would have heard from earlier in the webinar. It would be very welcome, like any ideas or any topics, and we can try and then we can get the we can facilitate the meeting between yourselves and the Green Deal Core projects. It doesn't just have to be with other projects as well, by the way. Anyone can be invited, such as like the industry and public entities that we were talking about earlier as well. So that is the end of my section. Again, are there any questions or comments on peer-to-peer networking opportunities? Or the newsletter, if you've just thought of one? If not, I will pass it back on to Beatrice, I believe.
Thank you, Matt. And well, related to this last presentation from Matt on the peer-to-peer, I'd like to thank two participants, Naila, who already asked on the chat whether she could contact the Biodiversity Working Group. This is part of this peer-to-peer offer that we have. So we will definitely connect you to the group, and you and other projects outside the Green Deal Call could at some point get part of the Green Deal Call activity, the GDCO activities, and join the working group meetings if there's a mutual interest from the projects and the external project to do some things together. And also thank you to J Ramos, sorry, I don't know what the J stands for also getting interested in trying to connect to projects who are working on sustainable textile or fashion aspects. And we will also connect you to the relevant set of projects to see if there's anyone who is working on this topic. So these are two examples that came up in the chat of potential opportunities for the peer-to-peer. Thank you very much. And now we'll proceed to close this meeting by starting by thanking everyone for your presence today. We are very good in time because there were not too many questions, so that means we're finishing a bit earlier, which everyone will welcome. Just next slide, because I don't remember if I had a slide there. Yes, so something that is really important for us if you take 5 minutes to fill out this feedback survey, because that will help us get your impressions of how the meeting was, whether the contents were interesting, and what we can do to improve and put together more relevant and appealing workshops or improve our offer for the future. These webinars for the network multipliers are run once every 6 months, so twice a year. This is our 4th one, and we wish to try to keep improving our offer to meet your needs and interests from the projects and from the external audience. So please give us your feedback and your suggestions of how we can do better. Also to say that the recording of this webinar plus a short summary of the discussions and the questions and answers is going to be posted on the Circa BC site. This is a European Commission site where there is a specific page for the Green Deal Support Office, and that's open for the projects and others as well. So we will publish all the materials there and also send you the link via email to all the participants to this recording and send the summary around. But we welcome you to visit this Circa BC site and register to it, because besides the website, this is the other side where you can find all the information about the Green Deal Support Office offer, new events that are upcoming, and also a register of past events. So you can also check past webinars. So this said, thank you very much again for your presence, for being with us. And we encourage you to sign up to the newsletter, where you will be able to hear about our future webinars for the network multipliers and others, and get informed about the news from the projects. So thank you very much. You can find the link to the feedback survey in the chat as well, in case you couldn't take the QR. And see you next time.